Coming up on today's episode of the Real Lives podcast.
At the end of the day, we're running for mental health. We're running because so many people have to carry the burden of suffering. For me, symbolically, it's like I am here to suffer as well. It's pretty brutal, but I'll answer completely honestly, like that. I literally could not even leave the toilet at the worst part. I probably tried to unalive myself maybe 6 or 7 times in my life. I've spent time in psych wards for fairly long time ago, but how I would fantasize and romanticize the concept of going for a walk down a footpath because the disease was so bad that I literally could not even leave the toilet at the worst part. And I bought this full hiking bag, and I was going to run with this entire bag.
Oh my God.
So I was going to run the entire time with this.
Jesus. On today's episode of the podcast, I have on Michael Finn, or better known as Diversal. Michael has just completed the incredible achievement of running from Melbourne to Sydney, and not only just running from Melbourne to Sydney, which is around 900 kilometres, he did so in the peak of summer. Michael did this to raise money for Beyond Blue, which is an Australian charity which helps with call lines and helplines for people who are suffering with mental health issues, as he has previously suffered himself, and we get into that in the podcast. We also talk about everything to do with the run, so from logistics, the fact he was going to run this thing on his own with no support crew. Initially, we talk about the things he bought, spending money on fuel, dealing with road trains, which in Australia are scary as fuck. Like, we're talking lorries in the UK with 9 trailers. Ridiculous. So we talk about stuff like that, running at night, dealing with drivers on the roads, how he trained for this. We also talk about his history with mental health issues. We get into his experience of having colitis, which, people know as Crohn's and colitis, but he had colitis. We get into that. We have a conversation about diet and everything to do with, the problems with the industries of the food industry now in terms of the sugar that they pump into stuff and how they market cereals as healthy breakfast when they're really not. We also have a bit of a debate about fasting, about certain supplements, stuff he takes and swears by. And we also go into a lot of other stuff to do with life in general. We talk about also, there's so much goes into this one. This is one of the longest episodes I've done with someone, and I absolutely loved it. So if you enjoy the episode, please give it a like, please subscribe on YouTube, and also leave a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you could. It means the world, helps me reach broader audiences on those. And you can also find all of Diversal stuff in the link in the description, so you can go follow him on TikTok or Instagram. And you can also help support his campaign by donating to his to Beyond Blue, and I'll leave a link in the description for that as well. So please enjoy this episode with Diversal. Michael, appreciate you coming on. As I start with everyone else who comes on the podcast, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, Ethan, my name's Michael. I'm an aspiring athlete. The reason I say aspiring is because this is still a sort of new concept to me. I mean, I've been obviously working out and running and swimming since I was a kid, but I'm still very early in the piece here. But I'm a plant-based athlete. I've recently, of course, just completed the Melbourne to Sydney run, and essentially on my platform, what I'm trying to do here is just inspire people, show people what the human body is capable of doing, and use that capacity to not only inspire others, but also to raise money for charities that, are meaningful to me as well.
Yeah, what you've managed to achieve in the last week is pretty crazy. So for context, let people know, sort of go into the statistics behind the run of Melbourne to Sydney. Like, how many days distance, much distance you covered each day?
Yeah, it was very random. See, I've never ever, the craziest part is I'm not even a runner. I'm a swimmer. That's where I get my cardio in. I like going in the beach, so running was never something that I did a lot of. Like I ran a couple of marathons, like, I've been in a running club before, but it was never something that like I was consistent with. So for me, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what my body was gonna do. So I didn't have a plan in the way like I have another friend who's running from Sydney to Melbourne. But and obviously he understands how his body's going to react. I never knew how my body was going to react. So what I did is I basically said I'm going to give it my best shot every single day. I'm going to put in my 100% and see what happens. Now on the first day, I ran 75 kilometers in one day, which I couldn't believe I could even do that and feel completely fine. Um, Now, the actual run itself, we left on February the 1st and we finished on 28th of February. However, I took off a total of 5 rest days, not because I sort of wanted to or because it was a voluntary thing, but more so because I ended up getting tendinitis in my right ankle as a result of what I now know is apparently one of my legs is longer than the other by a slight bit. One of the followers from my Instagram, supporter there, actually sent out a physiotherapist. I couldn't believe it. Physiotherapist rocked up and checked us out, and yeah, the tendinitis was starting to go. My ankle was starting to go purple because I was there was just too much pressure, on my ankle there and along my tibia. So it was a total of 23 days of actual running, 5 days of sitting on my butt.
Yeah. So the tendinitis was that Achilles tendinitis or was it something else?
I originally thought it was Achilles tendonitis, but he sussed it out and he figured out that it was the other type of tendonitis. So it was because apparently my feet were rolling in to compensate for the difference in height between one leg and another.
Mm.
So as a result, the tibia was getting too much pressure, and the ankle was getting too much pressure. So along that area, there was just too much pressure being taken due to the rolling in. That's sort of how he explained it to me.
So what point during the run did you start experiencing the problems with the tendinitis?
It was I remember the exact. It's funny you asked that because I actually remember the exact moment that I was like, "What's going on there?" It was just before a town called Tarcutta, and now Tarcutta is actually considered the halfway point between Melbourne and Sydney along the Hume Highway. They've got it in a big sign that says halfway to Sydney, as you come into Tarcutta. And I remember feeling this weird clicking and popping sensation in my ankle, and I was like, "What's going on? What is that?" And I tried to sort of gaslight myself. I was just like, "Oh, that must just be my sock coming up and down or something." I didn't want to accept that I could have an injury. I was just like, "Nope." And so it was just like a popping and crackling sort of sensation just before Tarcutta, about halfway through the run itself. Yeah.
Crazy. So when you started experiencing those issues and you'd seen the physio, what sort of distances were you covering in the days after, and were you in much pain with it? Like, how were you managing it all?
Um, I was in a fair, I was in a fair bit of, I wouldn't call it pain, but more so a discomfort. It's like, it's not like a physical, I mean, it did get to the point that it became pain eventually. But for the majority of it, it was a discomfort where it stopped me from running as fast as I would have liked. And it caused fatigue along that area of along my feet and my ankles. It was, and that's the most bizarre part of the run for me is I figured, it's my calves and my quads and stuff like that. I was expecting them to hurt, but my calf muscles had no or almost no pain the entire time. They had tension, but my calf muscles had no pain across the entire expanse of the run. I never was concerned about the calf muscles or my legs at all. It was those joints and the pressure on the joints.
Yeah, because a lot of the time it is just a case of the joints take a brunt of it basically, where you know And that's where the tendinitis and stuff will come into it, because it's the muscle. You can build a hell of a lot of tolerance for muscle, and you can do the same for tendons, but tendons take a lot longer to adapt. And then if you overload that tendon too much, which is where tendinitis comes in, it just becomes so tricky. Like I had distal hamstring tendinopathy, so like towards the back of your knee, last year, and that took me and that was a result of like a knee injury that I had that was causing the problems. But that took me, I'm gonna say, close to a year to get over that. And it's not,
Wow.
it's not even. And tendinitis is such an annoying one, because it's not even a pain thing, it's a discomfort. Like you said, it's a constant discomfort that you feel, that just, because obviously you're walking all the time and stuff as well, it just causes so many problems.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a constant, and it was confusing as well. I was like, I was expecting an injury, but I didn't know what the injury would look like. I didn't know how it would feel. I didn't know what to expect, because I've never done anything for this before. And I always said that, it's a bizarre thing to choose such a long run to really use that as a learning experience. But I wanted to find out, what is my body capable of doing? What can I do to become a better athlete? And what better a way to figure out how to do that than to really push yourself to the limit? It's hard to know what your weak points are. It's hard to know how to optimize yourself as an athlete, I feel, unless you've really pushed yourself to the limit and found your weaknesses. And so I found a lot of my weaknesses during this run, and I found out ways to overcome them, and it's made me a better athlete in a lot of ways.
During the way I want to sort of do this is I want to get through the statistics of the run, and then we'll get into the why behind it. So, on average, how much distance were you covering each day, and how long was that on the feet?
The average was about 40 to 5, maybe 40 to 45 kilometers a day. And then sometimes I'd have days where I just, you know, had to push through injuries, and the day would be lower, and then the next day I'd have to make up for it. So it was kind of random. Like, it would sort of be like, sometimes it'd be like 75, 45, 50, 20, 60, 45. Like, it was like very up and down. So and yeah, that was basically it. February the 1st to 28th of February was the entire expanse of the duration we were out there.
If you've got this far into the episode, then you clearly enjoy it. So please give it a like on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, leave a comment, and also leave a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as it just helps me reach those broader audiences. I know I have to tell you all the time. It's because no one does it. So please do it. I'd really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of this episode with Diversal. Yeah. And when you decided you wanted to run from Melbourne to Sydney, logistically, how on earth did you put it all together? Because you had a friend who was your support crew for the entire thing. And, in terms of food, accommodation, travel, and all that sort of stuff, take me through it all.
It's really funny, Ethan, because originally I was going to do this completely by myself without a support crew. I absolutely I had no idea that one of my friends would have volunteered to take a month off of work and drive behind me along the support lane all the way from one state to another. I had no idea that was even a possibility. I'm going to actually, give me a second, I want to show you something, which I think you'll find interesting. Just bear with me.
Yeah.
So, this is crazy.
Let's go.
I originally, because I thought I was going to go by myself, I bought a portable solar panel, 10 portable batteries. I bought a massive container and filled it with like muesli bars, protein bars, running gels, a hydration pack. And I bought this full hiking bag, and I was going to run with
that?
This entire bag.
Oh my God.
So I was going to run the entire time with this
Jesus.
on my back. Sort of like a proper hiking bag.
Oh my days.
So that was the plan. We bought a portable solar panel, you know. We bought the sleeping bag, a bivvy, which is an extremely lightweight sort of cover to, you know, to carry your body, to cover your body. We had the portable solar panel to charge the phone, so I could still, you know, take videos and you know, track the run through Strava and stuff like that. And then
that is crazy.
I met a friend of mine who's actually a mental health nurse, you know, a few months ago, and I told her I was doing this run, and she's like, "Oh, that's so cool! I wish I could be a part of that." I'm like, "Oh yeah," and anyway, you know, my mom kept calling me and being like, "Michael, are you gonna be okay? Like, I'm worried about you. Like, can't you get like a support crew?" Like, I'm like, "Mom, like, I'll be fine. Like, I'll make it. Like, I'm a big boy." But she kept, you know, she was very anxious about it, and you know, I was like, damn, like I need my mum to be like on board with this. You know, I need her to not be too worried about me because she's a lovely woman. Anyway, you know, I was talking to my friend, who's a registered nurse again, and she was like, "I'm so excited for you. You know, I wish I could help. If you need me to help in any way, let me know." And I'm like, "Well, were you serious about saying like you were like down to consider like coming along with me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'd be down. I'll just have to like get annual leave and whatever." And I'm like, "You're sure? Like this is going to be a pretty like brutal thing?" And she's like, "Yeah, I could we could do that." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it then." And she's like, "Okay." So I kind of took, you know, when life gives you lemons, you know, when people offer help, you know, you don't have to turn them down. So while we had this massive bag, it eventually meant, because I had a support nurse, I could downsize to this thing. How good. So it means that I didn't have to carry all of this food and, you know, probably 12, 13, 14 kilos, you know, of stuff with me for the run. Now I'm very confident I still would have got it done, but having a support crew, you know, having someone behind me, I think it made it so much more safe, so much safer.
Yeah, because especially on those roads with, you know, with the road trains and stuff in Australia, Jesus Christ, I couldn't imagine like being alone with no sort of warning of you're going to be there on the road, especially because you were running at night a lot of the time because you did it in summer. Like, Christ, that's just it's sort of screaming for something bad to happen almost if there's no one with you.
Even having someone with you is screaming for something bad to happen. Now, I spoke to the police. I called the local police station, the closest police station I could find to the beginning of the Hume Highway, and I said, "Do you guys have a problem with me running a marathon alongside the Hume Highway?" And they, you know, they said, "I guess it's okay. Just make sure you're visible and whatever." So that was the only. It's not like I hit up the local council or the government and like went through a bunch of bodies. I just called a police station and I said, "Is it okay?" And they said, "Yeah, it's okay." So I was like, "All right, well, sweet. I guess we can do it then." But the risk some of the situations I had to go through, you know, there were definitely some times where I said to my support crew, Hannah, I said, like, I don't know, like, I'm kind of a bit scared. Like, you know, it was a few weeks up into it, I was pretty disassociated and didn't really understand the risk. But as I was getting closer to Sydney and it was like becoming more real that it's a possibility that I'm actually going to finish this, you know, sometimes those trucks, they'd be, you know, maybe this far away from your foot, because sometimes the support lane, you know, I mean, the service lane, you know, where you're meant to drive your car if your car breaks down. Sometimes that service lane would end up not being even the length of the width of a full car. It would go smaller and smaller and smaller at some parts of the road. Especially, there'd be times where it would be just car after car after car after road train after truck, even if it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And there'd be a bridge that would come up, and sometimes the bridges would be like 150 meters. You know, there was one particular in Gundagai, which is a massively long bridge, and there's almost no sort of service lane for a lot of it. So you just have to sprint as fast as you can down that bridge and hope that no trucks come. And if they do, that they see you and they pull out into the other lane. Otherwise, it's game over. So there was a lot of risk.
Yeah, it's one of those things as well that you can't really prepare for that in any aspect. The only thing you can do is it's that saying of control the controllables, where you have to just make sure you're prepared to be able to run through the night. You've got the equipment that is there to help you be as safe as you can possibly be. It's just then down to other people and their judgment then, and you've just got to, sort of hope to God that people aren't shit drivers or just idiots on the road and that they don't cause any problems along the way, which luckily didn't happen.
I've got to say that I am actually surprised at the high quality of driving that I did actually, experience. Majority of the time, the truck drivers would literally move into the other lane, even though they could have driven straight past me. Literally, at least 60, maybe 65% of the time, two out of three truck drivers would get into the other lane, just to avoid the chances of getting close to me. And I can't imagine how annoying. I'm sure that I wish that I had a truck radio so I could hear some of the things that they would be saying. Would be absolutely hilarious. Look at this bloke at the side of the road, mate. Look at this idiot at the side of the road. What's this bloke doing? I'm sure the truck radios for that month would have been absolutely hilarious. But at the end of the day, most of the truck drivers, they were seriously considerate and seriously, a lot of them even knew, because I was doing live streams on TikTok and stuff. A lot of the truck drivers were in those live streams watching me, and showing support. They'd, at least once every hour or two, there'd be a truck driver honking, saying good day, saying hello. A lot of them recognized us from the social media platforms and supported us, which means so much, because I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to drive a truck for 10, 12 hours plus, a day, to be living on the road and to have to worry about a hazard like some guy running at the side of the road. Like they were, actually fantastic to deal with, the truck drivers.
Yeah. Why did you do the run in the middle of summer? What was that about?
Well, I figured that lots of people have run from Melbourne to Sydney. I mean, I wouldn't say lots, but I mean, it's been done a bit. I don't know. I don't think it's been done for a while. Like, I had to look into it and tried to find any media. I haven't found anything about anyone running from Melbourne to Sydney in the past 12 months. So I think it hasn't been done in a while, from my understanding. If anyone's watching this, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd love to have a chat with some other people who've done it. But from my understanding, it hasn't been done in quite a while. But it's still something that's been done a fair bit, across, the past 50 years. Like, you have a lot of athletes, you got Cliff Young, who did it in 5 days and 16 hours, I think. I remember the whole run. I was thinking, how did Cliff Young do this in 5 days and 16 hours? That man must have just been built out of concrete. I cannot even imagine how fit, how low his resting heart rate must have been. What kind of an absolute, different breed of human being this man was. But, a lot of people have done the challenge, but doing it in the height of summer, dealing with 35, 36, 37 degree days, that to me was like, that's a serious point of difference in making it a serious challenge. And at the end of the day, we're running for mental health. We're running because so many people have to carry the burden of suffering, and for me, symbolically, it's like, I am here to suffer as well. I'm not going to sit here and try and raise money for mental health and not carry some kind of burden myself. I am someone who's dealt with mental health a lot in my past as well. But for me, the running in summer, it's like symbolic of the pain that people have to experience as well. Like, and it really was painful. Like, especially, I remember running into Albury, into the state border between New South Wales and Victoria, and it was a 34 degree day that particular day. And I just said to myself, like, I was in pain, I was sweating, I had to probably drank 6 or 7 liters of water that day, and it still wasn't enough. I was still dehydrated. I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and it was never enough. But I was just thinking to myself, I'm not going to let this weather defeat me. I'm not going to let the sun defeat me. I'm not going to let the rain defeat me. I'm not going to let anything defeat me. So I took off my shirt. I put my I remember getting to the border. I took off my shirt. I chucked the hydration pack on, and I just started sprinting as fast as I could down the Hume Highway. I was doing a live stream, and my mum said I looked like a deer, just like pouncing down the road like a deer. I just started sprinting and sprinting as hard as I could. It was in the 34 degrees, 35 degrees, humid, thick air. I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna sit here and let myself get taken away and complain about something as simple as a bit of heat. Like, if I'm to become the man that I want to be and to inspire people in the way that I want to inspire them, I have to be something more. And I've never done something like that. So this run was about pushing myself out of into more discomfort, more than I've ever felt before. And yes, I did do a fair bit of the run, at night, but I conquered a lot of hot days and would run sometimes from 10. There was a few days where I run from the morning till the late, or the early morning after, So I just wanted to push through that. I wanted to be with the pain. I wanted to suffer. I wanted to be able to relate to and understand the other individuals as well that have put themselves into serious discomfort. This is nothing compared to some of these Sherpas on Mount Everest, or compared to some of these endurance athletes that run 250 kilometers straight. I can't imagine that. But if I'm ever to become like them, I have to be a man that can sprint down the highway at the maximum speed I can, despite any temperature. That's what we have to do.
But you say as well, like you say, as if you ran in the night, as if that made it easier. But also, there's a lot of complications that come with running through the night: sleep deprivation. You become delusional as a result of that. There's a lot more. There's a lot more risk involved in terms of other drivers on the road. Like we said, like if someone doesn't see you at night, you're more likely to have a drunk driver at night than you are in the day. Like there's a lot of different complications that do come with that. So it's not even as if just running at night makes it easier because of the temperature. No, because it adds other factors as well.
100%. Both had massive challenges during the night. Sometimes, especially in Goulburn area, when you're getting close around that area, it was really freezing cold at night. Like actually so cold, I was like a little bit shaky, despite the fact that it was in summer. It actually got like not freezing, but like really cold, to the point that even wearing a jacket, I was still like shaky, and I still had to push through it. But something that stands out to me that you just said is, getting a little bit like delusional, that's actually something that happened to me a lot. Sometimes I would make a goal, like I want to get to this particular town by this date. And I would overestimate my body a bit and think that I'd be able to make it, to make up for it, because I slacked off the day before. So there'd be days where, I'd have to keep running from the night in a state of serious sleep deprivation, and it's very difficult falling asleep in a swag, especially when you wake. I mean, it's not difficult, but it's difficult in the weather conditions when you wake up at 10 o'clock and your swag feels like a sauna, so you can't keep sleeping in. And you're at a campsite where people start getting loud at 10 o'clock anyway. So there'd be times where I was so sleep deprived while running, I'd see like little black shadowy figures, like while running. I'd be like, what is that? And it would just be like my mind playing tricks on me. And as you said, at night, the visibility is lower, so you're kind of a bit more scared. And, I think there's something to it. Being able to run during the day makes you feel more awake, more alive, because you got that sun in your face. But when you're running at night, it's just so anti everything that your mind and your body are telling you, dude, it's like it's dark, go to sleep. And you have to just be like, no, I can't go to sleep. And so you're literally in a mental sort of war of your mind is telling you, dude, this isn't what we're meant to be doing. And you have to just keep overcoming your biology and keep overcoming that survival instinct, and that was so difficult for me.
It's interesting how mental resilience comes into it, because that, I feel like, it's once you've done the work in terms of the physical preparation, it's then how mentally you're going to survive such a long and enduring task. So in terms of that side of it, what were you doing to prep?
To prepare for my mental resilience, of course, I knew that I was getting into heat related discomfort. I knew I was going to be sweating. I knew I was going to be hot. So I just tried to push really hard in my sauna sessions during the day. As soon as I finish up with work, I get into the cold shower, get into the ice bath, and then straight into the sauna. And I'd push myself as hard as I could. I would stay in the sauna until I started to feel sick. And you get to eat, and I'm sure there's some science behind that, why your body starts feeling sick when you're in the sauna. But I would just push myself as hard as I could in the sauna because especially when it's like 90 degrees plus, it is just, saunas can be fun, but it gets to a point where it's just like, this sucks, I want to get out, I want to get out. But I would just stay in that, and I would just be like, well, this is where we are. And my mind would be like, no, you have to get out. Like, it's too hot. Like, you're going to fall over. I'd be like, no, this is where we are. This is what we're doing. And it was the constant amygdala, that constant survival mechanism in your brain is just like, dude, like, no. And you just have to be like, yeah. And it's just a constant fight between your biology, even pushing yourself for those longer sauna sessions. I would do high intensity interval training, which is just no fun at all. You'd get to the point that the lactic acid build up would just make you feel like, like you just feel like like I would train to the point that I'd be like dry reaching, like feeling sick, like I'd be like literally dry reaching, and then I'd be like, okay, well that's the session. I'm about to vomit. Now I'll finish. So there was the actual the running and the swimming to the point of nearly throwing up. There was the sauna session. There was the ice baths as well. 3 or 4 degrees. I'm sure some people watching may do colder. But for me, that made me become more resilient. But it's been a whole lifelong battle for me. I've had a very difficult life. I've had to deal with my house burning down when I was 16. I've had to deal with going into septic shock when I was 17 or 18, having my body begin to shut down from my Crohn's disease, turning into a blood infection. And so everything in comparison to some of the things I've had to live through now just doesn't feel like a big deal anymore. When you've been in the intensive care unit and had your organs start shutting down, when you've had from blood infections, going to the pool or going for a run doesn't feel like a big deal anymore. It's about that yin and yang, that contrast of even the Melbourne to Sydney run. I'd much rather run from Melbourne to Sydney than be in the ICU again trying to take on septic shock. So when you have those contrasts and you understand and have felt real and severe pain in life, other pain doesn't feel like a big deal anymore. And so all of these sort of difficult situations, having my house burned down, the sepsis, the Crohn's disease, mental health battles, interpersonal relationships that, have made me not even want to be alive anymore. All of those situations in conglomeration have sort of turned me into someone that I've just dealt with so much pain and so much suffering to the point it doesn't feel like anything anymore. Nothing bothers me at all anymore. It's all just... It all just slides off of me. And all that I think back to is how goddamn grateful am I to be alive. How happy am I that I have the opportunity to be alive. It doesn't matter if I lose everything. It doesn't matter if every single person in the world abandons me. It doesn't matter if my body is suffering immensely from my sport. Nothing matters because... look where we are. Look at the opportunity to be a conscious sentient being. I'm so happy to be alive. When you're as happy to be alive as I am, nothing matters. Even the pain is beautiful. The pleasure and the hedonistic stuff is one thing, but to be able to fully embrace pain and understand that we're lucky to even be able to feel it, and especially when that pain can turn into something beautiful, when it can turn into money being raised for charity, when it can turn into making you a stronger and better person, which inspires other people in the community, it all becomes just nothing, and it just becomes normal, and it becomes easy. Now I'm not saying the run was easy. I'm not anywhere near as fit as I want to be, but it's easier. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot more difficult things that are done throughout my life. This is just the beginning.
And this is part of what I think suffering with mental health problems does for you as well, is it allows you to become very introspective on your situation and who you are and what you want to be and all these different things. And for me, and it sounds like the same for you, before you suffered with mental health, you don't really appreciate much in terms of, you don't appreciate the fact that of where you are. You don't appreciate what you've achieved or who you are. But as you suffer and get to the lowest point and you get to that point where you don't want to be alive anymore, it allows you, when you then come out of it, to really appreciate where actually you are, what you get, what you're allowed to do every day, who you can be, what you can achieve, what you can work towards. You really start to appreciate those things. And like for me, I'm glad I got to the lowest point that I got to, because it allowed me to be who I am now. And I can imagine for you, it's the same thing, where if you hadn't gotten to the lowest point that you'd gotten to, would you have ever run from Melbourne to Sydney? Would you ever wanted to do any more things, alongside that? Probably not, because when you experience that kind of pain, you can never replicate that kind of pain with like Will Googe. He's an ultra endurance athlete and he runs for Macmillan Cancer in the UK. And he says, I'll never be able to replicate the pain that people go through when they go through the cancer treatments. But what I can do is I can put myself in as much physical and emotional pain as I possibly can to try and raise awareness and some money for those people who do suffer worse than me. And, it just allows you a perspective that you can appreciate more things in life, and you can really want to push yourself more to try and not try and feel it again, but to try and raise awareness of it, if that makes sense.
100%. Like that pain is so valuable, and they say that adversity makes men, but prosperity makes monsters. When you have that adversity, when you understand what it feels like to suffer, you can empathize with people, But when you are, when life is just on easy street, when you're just born into wealth and easiness, you've never had a hard day in your life, when you've never had to truly suffer, and everything's just been cruisy, you see all these studies about, CEOs and all these like successful business people, a lot of the time being more likely to be sociopaths. And the reason I bring that up, adversity, being that person that's suffered, it allows men to be men. Or, the same concept goes to women being strong women, but you know what I mean. At the end of the day, adversity allows you to come into yourself, empathize with the people around you, even to understand the nature of reality, because the nature of reality is pain. We live, we die. This is the reality of life, and you have to accept it. Being self-aware, understanding and accepting pain turns you into a stronger, more self-aware, more empathetic individual. And, at the end of the day, it can translate into something very, very beautiful. The other option is don't go through any adversity. Just sit by, take on life, be on easy street and never find your true potential. I mean, that's terrifying to me. That seems a lot scarier than running from Melbourne to Sydney for me. Not becoming the man that I could have become, that's terrifying to me.
And that was part of what got me to my worst point, was because I wasn't working towards it. I was literally coasting through life. I wasn't pushing myself to do anything. There was no getting out of the comfort zone, and that got me to that worst point. And now it's like, I never want to be in that place where I'm comfortable, because being comfortable scares shit out of me. Absolutely. It's just because I feel like once you're comfortable, you're not living, you're waiting to die. And there was an Irish guy who I saw the other day on social media, and he basically says he speaks a lot of his thoughts through his socials, and he's quite a very good talker. And he was saying, there's two givens in life, that you're born and that you die, and anything in between, it just happens. So why don't we just live life completely delusional, as if like everything's going to go for us and that we're always going to win? Because if you're so delusional about something that you're going to win, it's likely that you are going to win. So why don't we do that? And that was the thing I was always doing. I used to sit and think, oh, I want to do this. Oh, maybe not because of this or that. And I was always against myself. Whereas now I'm more like, I'm just going to do it, because you've got to be delusional to get yourself there.
Yeah, and if you believe something, it's true. Like, it's not. I don't look at that as delusion. If you believe in yourself and you believe that you're going to become the person that you're going to become, then it's true. Like, at least for me, every single time I said I'm going to do something, it may not be now, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be the next month, but I'm going to get it done. It always ends up happening. When I started telling people I want to run from Melbourne to Sydney, you should have seen how people looked at me. They were like, "Oh yeah, that's oh yeah, that's a really nice idea, Michael. That's great." Like, no one actually believed that I'd make it. I had even some of my closest friends. They were like, "Mate, you're not going to make it." And I'm like, "No, I am." And they're like, "What do you mean I'm not going to make it? Why don't you believe in me?" And they were like, "Nah, mate, nah. I'll put money." One of my mates said that they'd put money on me not making it to Sydney. You know,
Christ.
for real. You know, that's one of the craziest concepts, that I actually got from this run as well when I got back in retrospect, was the dopamine fasting. Being out there, it was just run, 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 run. A lot of the time it was just run, eat, run, sleep. Run, eat, run, sleep. Run, eat, run, sleep. There was very little dopamine. There was very little satisfaction that was going on there. There was very, very little happiness that was out on that road. It was just roadkill, the smell of dead, decaying foxes and kangaroos, and road and vehicles going past me. It was just anxiety and foreboding and stress and pressure and pain. That's all that's out there along that highway, at least for me. And when I got back, everything feels so good, because I've had the opportunity to be away from the Western society, away from pleasure, away from hedonism, away from instant gratification, and I've been able to completely just be in my own body and completely reset my mind when it comes to dopamine. When I came back, everything, even nice big green trees and flowers, architecture, a nice cold drink with ice cubes in it. Everything just feels so good now that I'm back. I think we all need to, from time to time, do a bit of a dopamine fast. Get off the phones, get off social media, get away from the instant gratification that you can pay for in society right now, and just be in your own body and feel and suffer. It's amazing for you if you're willing to put yourself in that position, instead of just being constantly overwhelmed. Because the pain with dopamine, because the pain of having instant gratification and lying to your brain through video games, through pornography, through fast food, you're just lying to your brain and telling yourself that you're succeeding when you're not.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you look at it like that, in terms of you telling yourself that you're succeeding when you're not. Because I think because I had a guy on, one of my friends who I went to uni with, and we were talking about this. Basically, it's a war against technology, because what's happening is these big tech firms, their goal is to take all your attention, is to get you using their apps as much as possible. And that's why we have YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, these things where we can swipe and there's an algorithm that picks up on what you like based on how long you spend on it. Do you like it? Have you saved it? Have you sent it to someone? So it'll show you more of that same thing. And they're keeping us on these apps. And, as much as we're very complex beings, we're also very simple in terms of we're so easy to figure out. We're very easy to figure out how to get someone addicted to social media. And because it's not gambling and it's not drugs or it's not alcohol, it's fine to get people addicted to it. So, I'm going to say probably 50% or more of people who use social media are probably addicted to it in some form. I'd say I am, if I'm honest. Like, I absolutely am. I spend way too long on it. But, doing the dopamine fast I have done one before, and it's crazy the difference it makes to your outlook on things and how much more you can get done in a day as well.
Yeah, dopamine fasting is so important. But at the end of the day, we're the product. If you're not paying for your Instagram subscription, then you're the product. But we're in an early stage in technological advancement in history, and we're also in an early stage, in my opinion, when it comes to moral ethics about the difference between right and wrong. Now, you can say that we live in a successful society with laws and regulations, and that we're self-aware, that we say gambling is in moderation because it's bad and it's addictive, but we don't have the emotional intelligence or the the capacity to debate well enough, I think, right now to even agree as a society that social media has serious ramifications. I mean, we as a society can't even agree that it's probably, like, this is going to be a bit controversial, but man, I think sugar shouldn't even be legal. Like, I mean, not necessarily legal, like everything should be legal, but I don't think that I think sugar should have a warning label on it. That people who don't have the intelligence to make good decisions should at least be able to, see, okay, well, this could cause heart disease, cancer, free radicals, inflammation, whatever. Even that, the fact that as a collective society, we can't even say, you know what, I'm just going to put stevia in Coca-Cola instead of sugar. Like, really, we as a society can't even agree that we care about ourselves enough that we can't replace monk fruit extract and stevia as a sweetener instead of white sugar. Like we are. The reason I bring that up is because we are in a stage in human history where we don't care that much about ourselves or our longevity. There's plenty of science, there's plenty of studies out there and plenty of money being put into biotechnological science to advance the human to the lifespan, but we still can't even agree on that. There's objective evidence out there that says that specific nutraceuticals like spirulina, glutathione, turmeric, ashwagandha, astragalus, there's objective substances that increase your lifespan through objective means, but we can't even agree that we should probably just put monk fruit extract and stevia as a sweetener instead of sugar. Like, we would rather poison the one body that we've been given. We'd rather poison it for the sake of a quick 2-second mouth feeling. So if we can't even move past that, how are we meant to say, okay, social media should probably have a 2-hour limit per day, so we don't fry our brains from dopamine and not be able to experience life in a fulfilling way?
Yeah. What gets me with the sugar side of it is cereals, the way cereals are marketed at kids. And, it's they deem them as like, start your day right. It's like, well, no. So you're telling me kids are starting the day with a shit ton of sugar, which results in an insulin spike and then an insulin drop, which causes fatigue. It causes emotional disruption. Kids don't, they can't regulate themselves properly. And when they're growing up, when they're developing, and we're starting every day with these chocolatey, sugary cereals, what are we setting them up for?
I wouldn't care if the breakfast was a big quinoa and spinach salad with red kidney beans and it was perfect. I don't believe in breakfast. I think eating breakfast is probably one of the dumbest things that you can possibly do as a human being. And I'll tell you why. You want that every single biotechnological scientist worth their salt says that fasting is the surest way to increase your lifespan. You can do everything. You can eat organic, you can do this, you can do that, you can quit sugar, you can do all the right things. It doesn't matter. But if you if you're eating 3 times a day, all of that energy is going towards digestion instead of cleaning up the free radical damage from all the oxidative stress. You want to be fasting 16 plus hours a day every single day. The best way I've ever felt in my entire life was when I was on 1 meal a day. I had one extremely calorie dense, nutrient dense meal a day for about 6 months, and my energy levels were higher than I've ever been in my entire life. Nowadays, I fast minimum 16 to 18 hours, because I just need a lot more calories because I'm obviously training for these big runs. But I think telling people to eat breakfast is just, when you go look into the rabbit hole and you see what it actually does. You're better off in the morning having a black coffee or a matcha green tea with no milk, just and that's it.
I think just to sort of combat that a little bit, I do think for kids, breakfast is important because it's like that first meal of the day. And also, if we're looking at it from a perspective of what they're eating in schools, is that enough? I don't necessarily think it is. So I think it's important for kids, especially during developmental years. Like we look at animals across the world when they're growing from being born, they're constantly eating. They're always eating because they need it for the development. I think with adults, though, it's different. I think with adults, fasting does have a place and it is important. But I think what's more important to point out is with longevity, and like if you look at the blue zones, like the places in Japan, in Italy, in all these different parts, I think there's 6 of them in the world where the lifespan is above and beyond the national average in that country. The way that it's looked at is actually, when you break it down, it's the calorie deficit. It's being in a calorie deficit, which allows us, that's what is allowing them to live so long, and fasting helps towards that. But for me, I don't think it's necessary for everyone. I think it's necessary for a lot of people to try it and to do it, because you can learn a lot about yourself and actually how addicted you are to food and to sugar and to different things like that. Because when you can't just get up in the morning and chow down on your cereal, you realize like your brain starts being like, I need this, I really, really need it. And you start sending fake hunger signals to yourself when you're not actually hungry. It's just your brain wants the sugar. It's craving its addiction. So I think it's really important for that side of it. But I think if you're eating a balanced diet, a very balanced diet of, highly nutritious, you're getting the calories that you need to do whatever exercise it is that you're doing or whatever daily task it is you're doing, I think there is benefit to eating 3 or 4 meals a day. It just depends on the person, the scenario, and what they have coming up or what they're going through at that moment in time.
I think if you're a seasoned athlete trying to take over the world, then you need a whole bunch of calories.
Yeah.
But I think for the purpose of lifespan extension, caloric restriction, optimizing glycation and adipose tissue, those sort of things are the things that are going to increase human lifespan. I think that if everyone fasted 16, 18 hours a day, I think that cancer levels would it would still be a thing, but I think it would go down a fair bit. At least a percentile.
I think even if it was for 12 hours a day, because if you look at most people's lifestyles, the moment they get up, they eat. Just before they go to bed, they've eaten something. So they're not even getting 12 hours a day without food. So I think
the problem is 14 to 16 hours is where the sweet spot is, when the ketosis, where things start to get really, really cool when it comes to the benefits. But as you said, it's everyone's has different goals when it comes to life. But when it comes to lifespan extension and energy, I'm just going to say my experience doing the 16-hour fast, like my energy levels are just way, way, way higher. Like I can just talk and talk and talk like a squirrel with ADHD, and I just never run out of energy. I work all day as a salesman, doing 100 plus sales calls to clients. I'll go home, smash out a 2.5-hour gym session, still get cardio in the morning, still do the saunas, still do the ice baths, still have conversations with friends, and still be able to maintain intimate relationships all at the same time, which I think is just almost impossible for most people. And that lightness that you feel when you're not carrying food with you, the mental clarity that you feel and the way that your body feels and your mind is just another level.
Yeah. So let's get back to the run, because I'm interested in, you know, the preparation for it. How long did you give yourself to prepare for this run to Sydney? And also, in terms of food, like you were saying there, you know, you used to like having your one meal a day. How much were you eating in terms of calories a day in the preparation as well?
I did not prepare very long at all. I was just sort of like, yeah, let's do it. I I think in November I was like, yeah, I want to run from Melbourne to Sydney. And
Christ.
then I was gonna do it in December, but then my boss was like, no, like we need you for longer than that. Can you choose another time and give us
Mm.
some more notice? And I'm like, all right, I'll do it in summer. I'll make it crazy. I'll do Feb. And when it came to preparation, I was fasting for 16 to 18 hours a day during my preparation, and I'd break my fast with some oats, with pumpkin seeds, goji berries, wild blueberries, raspberries. That was like the typical sort of meal, and then some like just like wholemeal toast with just like a bunch of like peanut butter, but like high oleic peanut butter, because that's like my favorite peanut butter for health benefits. And then I'd have this like big meal, just a bunch of rice, beans, and heaps of veggies. Bit of usually then I'd take about I'm into like biohacking and stuff, so I take about 140, maybe 150 different supplements a day, and I have for about 3 or 4 years. That
Jesus.
sounds crazy.
Yes.
I take I take about 10 grams of spirulina every day. I take glutathione, which is known as the master antioxidant for that works alongside vitamin C. I take a lot of different sort of extracts, which I've done immense research on. But it sounds crazy,
Mm.
but yeah, I take about 150 different types of ingredients when it comes to supplements every day. Nothing illegal or bizarre. All this stuff you can find in any
Yeah.
pharmacy.
Mm.
But just
Yeah.
stuff like L-carnitine, for example, stuff that optimizes fat metabolism. Um, you
Mm.
know, just which so I know a lot of people are not into the supplements. They think that you just pee it out. I disagree wholeheartedly. I just don't think that that's true.
Yeah, well, research would state otherwise as well, but we do actually
Yeah.
utilize. But I think, have you ever listened to Dr. Rhonda Patrick's podcast? I can't remember the name of it.
I
Um,
learned about how heat shock proteins I think work
yeah, through
through her.
her.
I've only
Yeah,
watched a couple of videos from her, but I think she taught me how heat shock proteins work.
yeah. So she was on. I'd give it a listen. She was on Modern Wisdom podcast last week, and it was a really interesting episode because she gets into a lot of different supplements and stuff. And actually, certain supplements we can only there's if you take them, you'll only process so much of it. But like, say if you take a certain supplement, I can't remember which one it was, but she said a certain supplement, if you take it with a high dose of protein, you're more likely to process, like, say, upwards of 80-90% of a particular sample of, say, L-carnitine, for example. That's just a random one. I'm
Yeah.
not saying this is the one. But yeah, like if you have a high dose of protein, you're more likely to process that than you are if you were to do it fasted. And because there was one, she said, if you take it fasted, your body just won't process, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
That because that then we have to start looking at timings of supplements and what meal are we having it with, rather than just in the morning, let's get up and chow down on all these supplements. It's a case of, right, I'm going to have this one with this meal, this one in the morning, this one at night, that kind of thing.
100%. Like, it's better to take L-carnitine in the morning after you do a little bit of resistance exercise, for example. So there is timing. It's a very delicate game. But you get some of these athletes who you bring up supplements and they're like, no, you can get everything that you can get from just eating food, but they don't understand. I'll give you a perfect example: resveratrol. Now, this is a very controversial nutraceutical, but it's just a good example. people, they drink red wine for the antioxidants, and they don't know that the antioxidant that they're talking about is resveratrol. It's a polyphenol. It's a very interesting compound. But to get the the optimal amount of resveratrol that would actually really do a decent amount of work on the body, to get that amount, you'd have to drink like something like 3,000 or 4,000 bottles of red wine, like a truckload every day, to get the optimal amount of resveratrol. I think something like that. So when people say, "Oh, you shouldn't take supplements, you can get everything that you want from a whole food plant-based, not plant-based, a whole food diet. As long as you eat enough food, you'll get everything you need." Yeah, you can get all the vitamins and minerals that you need from your food, 100%. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. But when it comes to certain specific compounds, it's just not humanly possible to get the optimal amount of specific antioxidants. And these antioxidants, there's a lot of study on a lot of them that say, that they have serious health benefits. We're very early in on history, but I'd rather take the supplement, and if I pee it out and you're right, sweet, all good, you were right. If we find out in 200 years' time, that vitamin C doesn't even do anything when you take it in a supplement, and you were right, I'm happy for you. But I'm also happy to take the risk and pee it out and it not do anything.
Yeah,
I'm happy to take that risk.
Take the risk, and there's a risk of nothing happens, or you get the benefit, and you might get the benefit, and it's that 50-50, isn't it? So it like 100% agree on that. That like sometimes it is just worth taking that thing just in case. Like if you have poor sleep, taking magnesium and zinc before bed.
Oh yeah,
that might
chelated
magnesium. It might even if it's just a placebo, why not? Like if the placebo works, go for it.
The supplement that I can say has had the genuinely biggest real world impact on me, something that I've been like, whoa, like I can actually feel this, was spirulina. And that's something that I'm pretty sure they bring that up to the astronauts. Like that's how serious this stuff is. When they go to space, I'm pretty sure they give them algae, and I'm pretty sure that's probably spirulina. It's the most nutrient dense food on Earth. A lot of people think that that's sea moss because it has a large array of different minerals and whatnot. But spirulina is the most nutritionally dense food on Earth. It has the most nutrients per gram out of any food. And that one, when I take that, if I don't take it, I can feel the difference in my day. I'm like, I can feel the actual difference when I take it, when it comes to energy. So for people to say that supplements are a lie, they're a scam for pharmaceutical companies, hey, I'm sure plenty of them are. But plenty of them aren't too. Like, the world isn't black and white. It's not that simple. But, I took running gels, which a lot of, a lot of athletes use running gels just so they don't hit the wall as quickly. I took heaps of running gels throughout the run. Heaps of just like oat muesli bars to keep me going. Bread. Lollies, which I don't really like to put that sort of stuff in my body, but it keeps you going. I spoke to a few ultra marathon runners beforehand, and they all told me, eat a bunch of white bread, eat heaps of lollies, drink Gatorade, do this, and I'm not a professional runner, so I took the advice from the professionals, and I felt pretty good.
Let's actually get onto that side of things. So explain what Crohn's disease is and how your diagnosis process and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got diagnosed through getting a camera shoved up my butt, colonoscopy. How good. When I was like 14, Great. I was so scared. I was like, I do not want anyone going up my butt. Like, please. I was so scared that the doctors gave me Valium, like a benzodiazepine to calm me down. But yeah, Crohn's disease is essentially your body not understanding that it's a part of itself in some ways. It's a bit more complicated than that. For me, I call it Crohn's disease, but really it's a disease called ulcerative colitis. I just say Crohn's disease so it's more comprehensible to people. Because ulcerative colitis is almost exactly the same as Crohn's disease. It's like Crohn's disease, but just for the intestine, basically. So I just say Crohn's so people understand what I'm talking about. But it's actually called ulcerative colitis disease. But a better umbrella term for people to understand what I'm talking about here is I have inflammatory bowel disease, IBD. So inflammatory bowel disease is sort of a condition where your intestine doesn't recognize that your body doesn't recognize that a part of your intestine is a part of itself. So it attacks it. And so what that happens there is the mucosa layer of their intestine is constantly bleeding because it's being attacked. Almost like if you were to have an external alien in your body, your body will be like, go away. Well, my body, for some reason, cannot figure out that this particular section of my intestine, the left side, is actually a part of itself. How good. So that basically when I was 14, 15 years old, it was so bad that I'd go to the toilet up to 80 to 90 times a day. So it was just to a point where I would just be in the toilet all the time with my computer because I would just always have blood coming out of my body all the time. It would be like, go to the toilet, 5 minutes later, oh, there's more blood. 5 minutes later, more blood. 5 minutes later, more blood. It was just constant bleeding all the time until obviously I found the right medication. I changed my diet. I changed my lifestyle. Fasting has helped. Being plant-based has helped because meat can be very difficult to digest for people with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis disease. So going vegan helped substantially with getting it under control, and certain nutraceuticals like turmeric and stuff that lower inflammation, just little bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to what it looks like in real life, sometimes if I don't take my meds and I'm eating like garbage, it just means that I'm on the borderline of actually being incontinent, like an old 100-year-old man who cannot hold it. Just like that's how it is. Like you literally cannot, sometimes cannot hold it. Like it's not a very pretty disease at all, and it's something that is now under control for me. But it's still, my life is still different to a normal person's. It's still a disability. I'm still disabled. I hate to call it that. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like a super strength because it's it set me apart and made me a stronger person. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's internal bleeding. It's internal bleeding.
Yeah.
And it's no fun.
Yeah. And I'm guessing going through that at such a young age played into the mental health issues that you also had, like as time went on, sort of thing. Because obviously, if you're suffering with that and no one else is, it's probably quite hard to deal with that, especially as a kid.
Well, something that I find really important to tell people when they dig into this sort of journey I'm having is that when I was 14 years old, I would sit there and close my eyes and imagine how cool it would be to walk down to the milk bar. For people who are not Australian, what I mean is, like the local general store that has, sweets and lollies and
Little convenience store, yeah.
Yeah, I would think about how cool it would be to be able to walk down the footpath, and I'd imagine it in my head. I'd be like, wow, imagine if I could walk down the footpath and hang out with friends and go into the store and buy a bag of chips. Like, how cool would that be? Like, I would imagine how I would fantasize and romanticize the concept of going for a walk down a footpath, because the disease was so bad that I literally could not even leave the toilet at the worst part. There were times where I was hospitalized, put in the intensive care unit. The colorectal surgeon would come in and be like, yeah, look, we need to cut out your intestine, bro. We need to cut it out and we need to replace it with a colostomy bag, and your poop needs to go in a bag instead of out of your ass. Like, this is where we're at right now, my friend. Like, we need to remove your intestine today. And I was like, no thanks, Mr. Colorectal Surgeon. I would like to keep my rectum. I would like to keep my intestine. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to cut out the entire bottom of my digestive tract and basically attach that through a hole out of my stomach into a bag. And I was very close to having to get that surgery, and getting a colostomy bag, and a lot of that's a really amazing surgery. But obviously, as a 14, 15-year-old, I did not want a colostomy bag. This was like when I had my first kiss. I didn't want to be having my style cramped by having a bag with my own fecal matter and it connected to my stomach. So when the surgeon said, "Look, you're gonna die if you don't get a colostomy bag," I was like, okay. But luckily, I didn't decide to go for it. I took against the doctor's orders and pushed through. I started getting into fasting back then, not eating as much, giving my intestine a chance to have a break, getting onto anti-inflammatories. At one point, I was on like a chemotherapy, which is bizarre. You think chemotherapy is just for cancer, but this chemotherapy drug it isn't used for cancer anymore, but I think they used to use it in early stages. I used to have to get like an infusion into my arm and like be connected to like a bag for once every 6 weeks with these like immunosuppressive drugs to try and calm down my system. But after many years, I pushed through. But back in those times, all I could think about was how good would it be to be able to be physical. When I was only 14, 15 years old, even when I had this terrible Crohn's disease and I was throwing up in the toilets, no one knew, but I'd just quickly run into the toilet during class, vomit all over the place from the pain. It wasn't even vomiting from nausea. The pain was so excruciating in my body, it would cause me to vomit, just out of the pain. And so I'd be quickly running into the toilet, throwing up, bleeding all over myself, getting straight back into class. And even at that age, I still did cross country. I still did a 5-kilometer run in year 9. With Crohn's disease, without anyone knowing how sick I was. My ribs were sticking out. I didn't take off my shirt so no one could see, but my ribs were literally sticking out. My skin was pale as snow, and I was, genuinely. I mean, my parents one time they walked in my room and I was just laying there with my ribs sticking out, I passed out from blood loss, and they honestly thought they thought I was dying. And maybe I was. I mean, I was when I had septic shock. But experiencing that pain, it just makes you appreciate running and swimming and working out so much more. I know what it feels like to not be able to do it. And because I can do it, I appreciate it more. It's the same concept with you don't know what you have until it's gone. When you have a sexy girlfriend and then they're like, see you later, and then they're like out of there, and you're like, you didn't really care that much when they were there, but now that they're gone, you're like, oh damn, that sucks. I guess like that's that sort of same concept that I think every man and every single woman has experienced. That feeling of it's the same concept when it comes to having a disability, that you don't understand how sometimes I don't think humans can wrap their head around how good they have it until you don't have it. And so when I was 12, I didn't have the Crohn's disease. I was a normal kid. 14, bam. Now that I understand, I really do live in a completely different way. I appreciate it more.
Yeah, I get that in terms of what, once you don't have it, you kind of, like, it makes you want it more, because I've said it so many times on the podcast now, people are probably bored of hearing it, but I had knee surgery in August. So when I was still living in Melbourne, I had knee surgery. But in the build up to the knee surgery, basically my kneecap was in 2 pieces, and one of them was rubbing against the ligaments and the tendons, which caused tendinitis. It caused tightness of the ligaments, and it just meant, like, I got to a point where I was going up and down stairs and I was in pain. I couldn't do regular stuff in the gym, so I lost the ability to work out properly. I couldn't run. The only thing I could do was swim, really, without pain. Because even going on the bike, it would just flare up the tendinitis. Oh my God. At the end of November, I think it was 3 days before I moved back to the UK. And so I used to work at Victoria Uni in Footscray Park. So the track along the Maribyrnong River there.
Yeah.
I did my first run in, I think it was 8 months along there. I've never experienced elation like it, because it had been gone for so long, and like going through the rehab and stuff of the knee surgery, and struggling to walk. I was on crutches for a while, and it was just like because that was during that period was probably the lowest point for me. That was my lowest point in like I've ever been to. And then that getting to that point of taking those steps running. I ran for 10 minutes. That was it. But doing that 10-minute run was the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my life, because it was like I could be me again. I was allowed to be me again.
Wow. Yeah, and what a good spot as well. Like I've ran along there, and I can understand the elation. I mean, like it's a good spot, but also that absence in collaboration. I remember the first time I got out of the intensive care unit, the doctors, I mean, they really were very convinced that there was a pretty strong chance I wasn't going to make it. I could tell by the way they were looking at me, man. They were looking at me like, yep, this guy's a goner. They were like, you'd see them, all the nurses and stuff crowd around. And my blood pressure was, when I had sepsis, was 60/40.
Jesus Christ.
60/40. That was
for those who don't know, a regular normal blood pressure is around 120/80. So to be that low, like that's death's door.
Oh yeah. Well, see, I was in denial. I was like, "Nah, we're gonna push through this." But yeah, I was pretty much dying, and I don't know how I got out of it. They were pumping me full, just pumping me full the max dose of antibiotics, and it wasn't just one antibiotic; it's a collection of everything that they could throw at me. And I remember just my body feeling like it was just like done for. Like I guess that's what it was, feels like to be dying. And I'm still in denial about it, but when you say death's door, that's really what it was. Like they said, my organs were shutting down, and I don't know how I got out of it, but I did. And the day that I got out, because it was hospitals and it's all white walls, I got out, and it was along, I can't remember the name of the hospital, but it's the one along Commercial Road, next to all of the like the beautiful trees. It's a massive garden. And I got out of there after many, many weeks of pushing through. And I remember looking around at the plants and all the green in the Uber back to my apartment. And I was just looking at it all like, oh my God, look how green everything is. Look how beautiful everything is. And I was literally shocked, blown away by the beauty of Earth. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I couldn't even fathom it. It was like I've never felt anything like that since. I am grateful to be alive, but that level of being at death's door, being stuck around nothing but nurses and the white, stale room of an ICU, pissing into a tube, versus getting out and seeing the beautiful garden. I was absolutely gobsmacked and in shock and awe of the beauty of God's creation. Like I couldn't wrap my head around what I was seeing. It was like I was reborn again. It was literally like I was a newborn baby entering the world again. And it's an amazing feeling for those who maybe watching at home and may have felt something similar, or for those who don't. I mean, it just goes to show how valuable contrast is towards appreciation and gratitude.
So let's get into the why behind the run. Why did you do it? What was the reason for it all?
It's pretty brutal. But I'll answer completely honestly. Like, I've probably, I probably tried to unalive myself maybe 6 or 7 times in my life. I've spent time in psych wards for, fairly long time ago, but I've spent time in psych wards for, major depression, like to the point I did not want to be alive at all, like not even one little bit. I was just like so uninterested in what this world was and what it had in store for me that I just did not want to be alive, and I really did try very hard to not be here anymore. I didn't like the world. I didn't like the people in it. I got into a very deep and dark way of thought. I mean, having this disability, worsened it, but I just didn't like people. I was like, what's wrong with everyone? Why is everyone treating everyone like shit? Why is everyone treating me like shit? Why is the world so evil? Like, I just don't like this place. I'd rather just not be here. So that's how I felt anyway. And so I've tried to unalive myself maybe 6 or 7 times, like through various methods. And I've also seen a lot of I've seen a few of my friends do the same and succeed, unfortunately. And I've seen a lot of people just burdened by these complex mental illnesses. You've got borderline personality disorder, which is this terribly difficult, very, very intense mental illness, which makes people, you know, put all of their self-worth on their partners. You've got bipolar and BPD, which are some of the biggest ones I think people are trying to conquer right now. A lot of young people are going through borderline personality disorder because they grow up in broken homes, but they don't know how to, have intimate relationships with others, where they don't value themselves. So when they start to learn what love is, love becomes something of an addiction. And so you get like love addiction, you get depression because people don't like society or the world. You get, all of these people that you come across, the more you get to know people that just are really, really struggling to justify being alive due to the way that they've constructed their identity, but also due to chemical imbalances, due to perception. It's just, to me, mental health is like the most complicated issue in the world. Like, it's because it's just a million different reasons can cause someone to not want to be here or not to be happy. And for me, I just can't. It just hurts so bad seeing it. I've pushed through that now. I've pushed through not wanting to be here. I love being here, and I don't think I'm ever going to go into that negative place again. Now that I am in a position of strength where I am so grateful to be alive, where I'm so grateful to be here, I find it a moral responsibility to try and help others that are in the same spot. I know what it feels like to think that everything is never going to get better, that the world is just done, that you just don't, that it's over. I know how that feels, and it's just the suffering. It's far worse than even just mental, because the depression, it even feels like a sinking feeling in your chest. It feels like your life is being ripped apart. You end up becoming sick. You don't eat for days and days and days. It's just such a brutal suffering that no one deserves. Not even if you're a bad person, I don't think. The world should have the capacity to feel that way. I think people need to heal and evolve and grow to create a utopian society. That means strong mental health measures need to be in place. Safety nets to catch those at their weakest and propel them back up into a better life. And when you have charities like Beyond Blue, you call them, and if you're suffering, if you're in pain, if you do not want to be here, whatever it may be, you call them up, and what you're doing there is you're acknowledging that it's too much right now and you want to be better. Now, the counsellor may not be able to give you the answer to the world. Life is good, but life can suck. It's the reality of the situation. But when you make that call, you are acknowledging that you want it to stop, and that are trying to create positive change to move forward. I think having a mental health hotline that's available 24/7, where people may be like, you know what, I kind of am considering not being here anymore, but maybe I'll just give this people a call, and just communicate and walk through it, and then that you come up with a plan, a mental health plan to try and get through where you're at. And that is, I don't think it's just paramount. I think that it is absolutely necessary in a utopian society where freedom of expression means pain. We live in a society where you are able to say and do and be whoever you want. And because we have freedom, that freedom is always going to translate to some people being in pain, because people will always act against their best interests. So in this society, the consequence of freedom is suffering and mental health. Mental health issues are always going to be a part of society no matter what, because we have freedom. But if we have these support networks in place that can propel people back into positive thinking, or at least try and figure out what's the next move, that could actually mean lives being saved. I've used a hotline like that before, and I honestly can say that it saved my life. I don't know if it's too brutal for the podcast. Cut it out if it is.
Anything goes on here. I don't care, honestly.
Well, I was genuinely gonna jump out of a window. I was genuinely like, I put my legs down into the crack to make sure I could fit, and was trying to give myself the momentum and the adrenaline to be like, yes, let's do it. And I was like, okay, well, I can't. I'm struggling. I'm going to get drunk enough that I can just jump out a window and not care. So I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and then I was just, there's just a point where I was just crying and screaming to myself when I was in this state, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to call a mental health hotline, and they called, and look, I'm not going to lie and say that they solved my life, but they were there to be like, I acknowledge what you're experiencing right now. It's tough. This is the way forward. And at the end of the day, I was moving forward. I was able to conceptualize a better life because I spoke to a counselor, and I decided not to take my own life. I decided not to take my own life because of a mental health charity. So, if it can work for me, and I'm a very stubborn individual, if I want to do something, I get it done most of the time. If it can work for someone like me, it can work for anyone. It's so important that people know that because a lot of people, I brought it up along the journey when I was running to Sydney. A lot of people don't even know that there are 24/7 hotlines that they can call when they're depressed. I couldn't believe it. They're always on TV. But some people don't watch TV, so raising awareness to have people understand, look, there are numbers you can call if you can't cope, and they will be there for you, professionals that are trained to walk you through the situation and get you to the other side. I think, Ethan, that a lot of us as friends take on the responsibility as counselors for our other friends. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. I think professionals who are trained to do that job are the ones that should be doing it. I don't think that if you're yes, be there for your mates when they're suffering, be there for them, but at the end of the day, the professionals are the ones that are going to guide you in the right direction a lot of the time. You can be there for your friends, but there's only so many things you can say when they're saying, oh, I can't do this anymore. What are you meant to say as a civilian who's not a mental health professional? I've had people come to me, my inboxes, even during this run, and say, mate, it's interesting that you're running for mental health. I'm struggling so much right now. I'm not a trained professional. I always tell people, look, I'm really sorry that you're experiencing that, and I'm sure that you're a beautiful person and a valuable person, and you should absolutely, not take your own life. You are a valuable and important person, and you are going to push through this. The world is going to get better for you. Life is going to get better for you. That's all. But at the end of the day, look, these are the numbers that you can call where professionals can help you. You can't take on that responsibility. You need to let the professionals do it. And these are free charities, right? They operate from donations,
Yeah. Well, it's simple things that people aren't aware of. Like when I was at VU, I didn't realise that I got free access to psychologists and therapists. I got free access to that. But a lot of students aren't aware of stuff like that, and it's the case it's more likely than not that you will, if you're at uni, you have access to these people, you have access to these services all for free. So actually, it doesn't matter if your skin, it doesn't matter if you've got like $1 in your bank account, you can get access to these same services that cost other people $250, $300 an hour. So go and make use of it. And, for me, a lot of what you said, it resonates a lot because I was very similar. I was literally drinking in a day to try and build up the courage. And it's one of those things, like, and again, I'm a stubborn person. So, and for me to come out at the other side of it as well, I get what you mean, because it's like, if, anyone can come out of it, but it's a case of what people need to realize as well is you can't be reliant on someone else for the work to get done. You've got to do the work yourself, and people can help you along the way, but 99% of that work has got to be done by you and you alone, because it's about you figuring out who you are and who you want to be and why you're not that person currently. And also it's a case of, we can get out of that headspace, and that's fine, that's great, but be aware that it is possible to go back into that. Like, it's not a case of a linear path and you're out. It's a case of, 10 years down the line, there might be a series of events that happen one after another, which could cause you to drop back into that space. But it's knowing when you get to that moment that you've done the work, so that you have this backlog of things which help you maintain your mental health and get out of it quicker than previous, and actually not get to as low as you have been in the past.
100%. Mental health isn't just some journey where you see a therapist for 6 months and you do your work and then you're done. It's constant. People can make you hurt bad. Interpersonal relationships means giving a part of yourself to someone else, and they can take that and they can crush it. So you have to develop yourself and turn yourself into someone that I like to call that unfuckwithable. For me, I'm now in a state where I believe, I'm very confident that I'm unfuckwithable. It doesn't matter if some people I care about take advantage of me, or people I care about undervalue me, or if people, treat me badly, I will continue to move forward. It's that David Goggins mentality of can't hurt me. You just can't hurt me anymore. I'm past that. That may not be necessarily possible for the average person to callous their mind, as Goggins says, to the point that you're just completely, able to deal with anything. But it's the principle, right, that you value yourself so much as an individual that you, number one, are not codependent on others for your own, mental health, that you're happy to be who you are. And if this is really, really important, if you are a person who you're currently not happy with who you are right now, if you want to be more, that's okay, that's amazing, because you're on your way to becoming the man or the woman, or that you want to be. That's just so valuable, and that's so exciting. So don't be down about the fact that you're not who you want to be yet. If you don't feel like you're enough, well, that's exciting. It sucks as well, because you have so much work ahead of you, and no one wants to feel uncomfortable in their own skin. But do you know how exciting it is that you get to go on this adventure through life and become something more? It's about perspective, but that same concept can look like to someone else as, wow, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, I'm never going to be enough. Or you can flip the coin and be like, you are currently building yourself to be something amazing, but you're going to have to be patient, but it's exciting. It's exciting to be on that journey. So it's perspective, self-respect, and perspective will get you a long way, I think, when it comes to mental health. But that's when it comes to interpersonal relationships. Look, it's completely different when it comes to grieving and other different, scenarios that you could come across with mental health. But that's just one way that you can move forward when it comes to dealing with people mistreating you, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's also, what people don't realize when they're at that lowest point is you'll have moments along the way when you've started working on yourself. You'll have moments along the way of immense gratitude, because you realize how far you've come from that lowest point. Like my lowest point, I remember it very, very vividly, and it was taking ephedrine. There was like 20 of them. Like, you shouldn't have more than 2 of them. Took 20 of them, and I remember just going to bed and just thinking I'm not going to wake up in the morning. And then I remember having 3 days of like this horrendous come down from it, of just like heart racing, anxiety, sweating, like couldn't have conversations with people. And then I remember I was in Albania a few weeks ago, and I remember just sitting there. We basically went on this hike, and I was on the mountain on my own because my friend had gone down and there was no one else around. And I remember just sitting there looking at this mountain, and I was like, it's fucking crazy. Like, just a random moment where I was like, I can't believe how far I've actually come and how much happier I am now. And it's, when you're in that lowest moment, you'll never understand that you'll have those moments in time. But once you have that first moment that's like that, where you just feel this gratitude for where you've come, it's just, I can't describe the feeling. It's just pure elation. You feel motivated to keep going. You just feel happy. You want to cry happy tears. Like, it's a very immense feeling that it's so hard to describe to people who are in that space. But no, if you start doing the work, you're going to get to that point eventually. And once you get there, God, it's going to be the greatest thing you experience.
100%. And, I remember thinking to myself, I'm never going to feel happy tears. That's not something that's like a part of who I am. When I was going through it. But now I look back at this Melbourne to Sydney run, and, I remember being below the stairs of the Opera House, and I was just I was really tired. I was choking up. I was like doing a live stream. I had a few people with us there on social media, and I was like, guys, I think I'm gonna cry. Like, I can't believe I made it. Like, I need to hop off the live stream, or I'm gonna start bawling my eyes out, guys. Like, seriously, like, yeah, I was just choking up. I couldn't believe that I'd made it. But if you told me when I was 16 years old that one day I was going to be crying happy tears while 300 people were sitting there on the live stream, watching me as I run across the country, and had all these people messaging me saying, hey, you inspired me so much to get into running, to looking after myself, like, you're just such a inspiration. If you told me that as a 16-year-old, I'd be like, what? What are you talking about, bro? No, I'm not. I'm going to be a depressed loser forever, man. That's what I would have thought. It's just so important to be humble, to have the humility of understanding how chaotic the world is, to the point that you don't know what's going to come. Like if you think that if you don't like how you're feeling, just wait. That's because that's the life. Things change, like the weather. It was an amazing feeling, Ethan. Like, I got back into my hotel room, and I ended up sleeping about 14 or 15 hours after. I had a chat with a few people at the Opera House who were waiting there for me first, but then we were just straight back into the room. Uber Eats, massive meal, dead to the world for 14, 15 hours of just like, I was so tired. We woke up to the hotel, like opening the door and being like, yo, like it's like 2 hours past like your checkout time. I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I remember looking at, like, I posted like a recap summary like of running to Sydney, like the final video, and I remember watching it on my phone and just like crying tears of joy that I have become this man, that I have become someone who can inspire the people around me to become better, but also that I am now who I am after all those years of suffering and pain. And so those tears of happiness would not have come without adversity. I think the most important message that I have here, and it's an uncomfortable truth, but I think, and I may be wrong, but it's just how I feel, I think that we need adversity. I think that we need pain for life to be beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think that's controversial at all. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because how can life be beautiful when all you do is go to work, come home, watch TV? There's no adversity in that. Adversity, going out and, if you've never run in your life and you go out and run a kilometre, your brain's going to be screaming at you to stop. But getting through that adversity, you learn something about yourself. even if it's one thing, you learn something about yourself. And then if it's like learning a new skill, like my thing at the minute is what I want to push on socials is like, A, getting outside, B, being shit at stuff, because you learn so much about yourself when you're shit at something. And people are so content now to not be bad at something. They're happy to just coast at the things that they've learned and they're good at, but not learn any more about it. When it's like, well, actually, go and try something new. Go try just a random new hobby. It doesn't have to be a hobby. It could be a skill that you could learn for work. Do something, and it gets you. It's the adversity of like, oh my God, this is awful. I'm really bad at this. I'm never going to be good at it. And then in a month's time, you might be like, oh, I'm getting the hang of this. This is seeming pretty good.
Well, I think that even relates to your inner child, because like the happiest of us, the human race, are the children. And what are children doing? They're having new experiences. They're little kids, and they don't know what's going on, and they're seeing new things. And we're adventurers, human beings. We're adventurers. We're explorers. We're inventors. You know, I think we're really at our best when we're innovating and when we're learning. And it doesn't matter if 1,000 years go by, and we've been sitting around in laboratories, you know, for 1,000 years. I still seriously think that we are going to have so much work on our plate. If the world continues and we don't have some kind of, you know, doomsday situation, I think that we'll be busy for thousands and thousands and thousands of years still learning about each other. And I think we're at our best when we have that opportunity to learn. I really want to learn at the moment to dance. Like, I want to be that guy. You go into the club and the guys that are sort of like, yeah. And I come in and I'm like, no guys, like watch these moves. Like I would love to be that one guy who like goes to the club and actually knows how to like proper dance. So I'm like, but I'm a shit dancer. So what's gonna happen when I do eventually go to these dance classes that I've been procrastinating on for a few months? When I eventually go, it's gonna be awkward and embarrassing. My cheeks are going to go red and I'm going to look like a dork. But, you know, a few months are going to go by and I'm going to have this really cool new skill that I learned. And I had that relationship with my inner child of learning and experiencing again. And it's going to be special. So don't be afraid to be embarrassed.
Yeah, this is it. It's as simple as starting a social media if you've ever wanted to start one. People get so embarrassed about like what people are going to think of them and stuff. Like when I started the podcast, I procrastinated on starting the podcast for over 2 years because I was scared of what people thought. And now it's a blessing and a curse in a way, but I couldn't give a shit what people think of me at all. Like but my thing is if someone looks down on me for trying something, then they're not good. I don't want them to be part of my life.
And their opinion isn't one of value. Like I get hate comments sometimes I get people saying, oh, you ran from Melbourne to Sydney, that's easy. I could do that faster than you. And I'm like, but you didn't do it, bro. You haven't done it, man. You should. I say we should go for a race for charity. We should. I'll run from Sydney to Brisbane for charity, and whoever wins has to donate this much or something. I'd be happy to do something. Like you reckon you can do it better? Like, okay, let's do it. Maybe you'll beat me. I'd be happy for you if you did, but maybe you'll beat me and you're some like serious athlete. That's sick. But at the end of the day, if you are the type of person who gets on social media and you see one of your fellow brothers and sisters out here in the world trying to take on the world and be better and inspire others, and you go, oh, no, that your video is lame. It's like, man, what type of person do you have to be to even think that? It's just such a ridiculous mindset, and I think it comes from, and this is a tough pill to swallow. I think it comes from the fact that when other people, especially in Australia, there's a concept called tall poppy syndrome. Now, tall poppy syndrome, it comes from the fact that Australians have always seen themselves from early stages in history, since the 1750s or whatever, as underdogs. That developing class, we started off as a prison colony, so a lot of the white, Australians are, from that prison colony. It's that underdog concept of, we're not America, we're not England, we're just like, sort of just fresh off the boat as just got here and sort of, at the end of the day, that underdog concept has actually turned into something very toxic in Australian culture. And this is a very well-known thing, is that Australians, a lot of the time we will just straight up not tell our mates our achievements, because if we do, they're like, "Oh, are you sure you want to do that? Or that doesn't seem very good. Or that's nah, mate, you won't make it doing that." Or that they'll be like, "Oh, that's kind of lame. That's cringe." Like in Australia, there is like this weird subsect of the community that thinks that it's cringe to try, because they don't like seeing people do something that they're not doing, because I think it reflects on their own insecurity that they're not doing anything. So instead of accepting that thought, I think they live in a state of cognitive dissonance. And it's not just Australian specifically, but that's where it comes from culturally, where I'm from, I think, from that underdog concept. But in general, people, they project their own insecurity of, "Oh, well, I'm not really doing anything with my life. I'm just sitting here getting home and working and sort of paying off my mortgage," which, don't get me wrong, paying off a mortgage is super cool. Like, that's like building a life for yourself is awesome. But what I'm saying is people who are scrutinizing others for being creative but not being creative themselves, that's not someone whose opinion has any weight, because they're not a superior person. They're a hater who are projecting their own insecurities out of jealousy and envy. That's actually embarrassing for them. So if I get a hate comment, I'm like, I literally think, well, I'm sorry that you have to be the person that you are. That must suck for you, and I genuinely hope that you change, because I can see the hurt child inside of that person, because you cannot be how can you be a happy person and leave a comment like that? How could you be that?
This is it. They're not, and it's a massive reflection of who they are. Like when people take hate comments personally, it's like, well, it's not a reflection of you. It's really a reflection of them. It's a reflection of who they are and how they currently are sitting in the world. And it's, they obviously need help, these kinds of people, because to be leaving hate on people who are just trying, like, clearly you're not trying. Clearly you're not trying to do or achieve the things you want to achieve. Maybe it's a case of, this person, they've had a rough go at life and all the cards are stacked against them. And that, that might be the case. That might be fair enough. But again, it still doesn't condone people leaving hate. It's just, hate is something that, because we can hide behind a screen and a fake account, it's so easy to do it now. Like, we can get away with it. Whereas, 20, 30 years ago, it was less likely people were going to say anything because the repercussions of it. But there's no repercussions for anyone. So it's so easy to get away with stuff like that.
Well, I genuinely wish the best for everyone, regardless of if they have a different political opinion than me, regardless of if they have a different perspective on the world than me, whether they're left wing or right wing or no wings, wherever they, believe in whatever it may be. I wish all of society the best. And if you do live in a way that, I might find putrid, that particularly, those sort of people who live in the state of hatred, I don't, really sit around and think, oh, well, fuck you. I sort of think, well, I really hope that you get through that, because I want to live in a beautiful world where everyone loves each other and shakes each other's hands on the street and makes eye contact again. I don't want to live in a world where we live in this, technology-driven society that has driven everyone away from each other into a state of paranoia and delusion. I want everyone to get along, and so I genuinely, seriously wish any hater healing. Yeah.
Yeah. What's next? after running 900 kilometers from Melbourne to Sydney?
I have put a poll on my Instagram story and I said, guys, 3 options. We run from Sydney to Brisbane, option 1. We run around through Tasmania, number 2. Number 3, we run from Melbourne to Adelaide. What do you guys want me to do? And by a couple percent, Tasmania won. I couldn't believe
that'll be a good one. That'll be a good one.
The question is, do I run from one side of Tasmania to the other? Which is what I said in the poll. Or do I run the entire
Around it, mate.
Yeah, maybe that's the go, Ethan. Maybe but that's the poll. The poll decided the decision. I said, guys, whatever I do next, you make the decision. What do you want? The votes are in. Tasmania, the perimeter of Tasmania. Now, I'd love to do it on Strava, where the entire run is recorded, but I spoke to a few other ultra runners, and they said that apparently Ned Brockman was. This is just someone telling me that said something. Apparently Ned Brockman, who's like the best to do it so far, he apparently tried to do that and tried to track it on Strava, and for his entire Australia run.
Well, he's come into some scrutiny recently for running a 100-miler in Centennial Park in Sydney because he posted the run on Strava, and the run, I think it said he was averaging for a 100-miler, he was averaging 5 minute 35 kilometer or something, which is goddamn quick. But then actually, when you click on the run, he's paused it every time he's taken a break. So his actual pace was something like 7:20 a kilometer, and people are a bit like, "Why you like it?" Because he was basically, the way he posted about it on Strava, he was like, "Yeah, feeling really good, this and that," and people are like, "Well, you actually took an extra 5 hours on what you're claiming to have done that in," and it's like, I think it's one of those things. It's one of those things where that's haters getting involved and stuff, but also it is like selling it fakely, because if you're doing a 100-miler, you don't pause every time you hit a rest stop. It's like,
you just the full time. I think that's a bit nitpicky. Like, at the end of the day, what he did was still like,
it's ridiculous.
I don't follow the guy. Like, I don't really follow anyone. I just kind of stick in my own lane and like hang out with my friends. So I don't really watch what all the other. I probably should watch what all these gurus are doing, because they will probably inspire me. But I'm kind of like, with my work, I just work too much and stuff to have the time to check everyone else's people's journeys. But when it comes to that, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, he paused his run, had some water. Like, who cares? The thing is, while he was running 5 minute and 30-second kilometers. Yeah, he may have taken a break, but while he was running, he was doing 5 minutes and 30-second kilometers. So that was the speed he was running while he was running, and he took a break. Like, that's not a big deal. Most of these haters, Ned could outrun them all. Ned could outrun them all and pick them up over his head and throw.
The guy is a beast. He is a beast. Like,
but that's the thing. Ethan, You see what happens in Australia when someone tries to do a good thing? This guy set up an entire brand to try and help end homelessness in Australia, and he's putting his entire body on the line and taxing his body to try and end homelessness. He's literally he's putting his entire health and his joints and his knees and everything on the line to try and end homelessness. And people are like, "You paused your Strava. You paused the Strava. You suck." It's like, nah. He's trying to end homelessness. If you haven't raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for homelessness, I don't want to hear it about the pausing of the Strava. I just don't want to hear it unless like I don't. As I said, I know I should probably watch what Ned Brockman and everyone's doing. I don't really watch many people except the ones that follow me. Like, I support people who support me. It's a bit childish, but it's just how I am. But I still think what him and this community of all these really cool runners are doing in Australia is sick. And I don't think we should get, like, it's just awesome. Like, I don't think we should get too stuck up on the little details about if someone paused Strava. I don't think that that's deceptive at all, because it's not like he said I didn't pause it. Did he? If he's lying, that would be one thing. I don't think he's lying.
Yeah.
I don't think he's lying.
No, and it's funny because you can look at it like it's almost like the steroid accusations in bodybuilding. It's like this is the running version. It's like the Strava call outs for like, did they actually run it, or did he take breaks and stuff like that? So it's a similar thing where, as soon as you're at the top, people are always going to question you, and people are always going to.
It's not like he's trying to be an Olympian or something, is he? Like he's just. It's not like he's. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. The guy's crazy. Maybe he'll go get a gold medal. Maybe he'll see this and he'll go get a gold medal out of spite. I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but what I will say is that it's not like he's trying to train for a gold medal or something. From my research or from my understanding of him, he's just trying to raise awareness, which it's working. It doesn't matter if he pauses it. It doesn't matter if his kilometers were 10 minutes a second. Like, my kilometers are slow, man. I run like 6 kilometers an hour most of the time. I've got tiny little legs. Like, I'm 5'8". Like, I don't run very quick at all. Like, I prefer swimming. I hate running, man. I run like 6Ks an hour. Like, it's like some people could probably walk at the speed that I run. But, like, at the end of the day, this isn't about ego. This is about the fact that we're a bunch of people, of Australians, athletes who are trying to get at it and take on this desert, dry country and try and inspire people. Homelessness should not be a thing. Like, it just shouldn't be a thing. It makes no sense in our economy for homelessness to be a thing. Good people who work hard, losing their jobs and not having a backup option, or taking 3 months for Centrelink to approve them, and then by the time that they get approved, they've already lost their rental property and they're sleeping at the side of the road. That shouldn't be a thing in this economy. But at least someone like Ned is saying, okay, well, I don't want to see this anymore. A lot of us, we see the homeless people at the side of the road and we go, oh, that's so sad. But we don't actually do anything. This guy is sacrificing his knees to do it. So I don't care if I wouldn't care if he ran 15 minutes. I wouldn't care if he walked 100 kilometers. I wouldn't care if he crawled it. At the end of the day, he's doing more than what the haters are saying on Strava.
Absolutely. And I think, to be fair, I think we've covered like most of the bases here. But the one question I always end with people is, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as a person who dedicated their life to making the world the way that it should be, via putting themselves on the line and showing humans what is physically possible. I want to remind the human race of what we are, and I want to be remembered as an archetype for that. I want that to look like is, look, this guy, despite the Crohn's disease, despite the ailments, continue to persevere and inspire society and move society in the right direction. Where safety nets for mental health are there, where people don't have to pass away from cancer when there's a cure around the corner, but we just haven't maybe put enough money into it yet. I want to be remembered as someone who did their absolute best, to make the world a better place and to alleviate suffering to the best of my ability for all, not just for good people, but for everyone, man. For all people in society that are suffering, even the shitty ones. I want to be a voice for the voiceless, and I want to inspire others with my body and my mind. But I guess we'll see what that turns into as time goes on.
Absolutely amazing. Let everyone know where they can find you, where they can support you, where they can donate to Beyond Blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to donate to Beyond Blue, you can always just go on Beyond Blue's website, or if you want to donate to my campaign, there's a link in my Instagram bio that goes directly to the Beyond Blue fundraiser page, just on my link tree. But if you want to suss out the run, or watch my journey in the future, I go by Diversal on Instagram and TikTok. Those are the only platforms I have presently. That's Diversal, DIVERSAL, and then a little underscore underneath. So Diversal on TikTok and Instagram if you'd like to follow along as we take on Australia. However, I am going to take a much needed break and enjoy. I'm still going to be hitting the gym and pushing myself, but look, Tasmania, I call it the Tas Lap. That's the concept in my head. I'm going to call it the Tas Lap. The Tas Lap is it's going to be at least 12 months to 18 months away, but I'll get it done. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'll get it done.
Amazing. Appreciate you coming on, mate. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much to Michael for coming on. I loved how open and honest this conversation was. He was a really great guest to have, and can't wait to see what he has in store in the future and what's to come. Again, you can support his fundraiser at the link in the description. You can also go follow him on TikTok and Instagram. And remember to like, subscribe, share the podcast, all that BS. And yeah, I'll see you next Monday for another episode 50 special, coming out with a lovely little announcement as well. So stay tuned for that. Cheers.